In 1913, a failed art student was living in a homeless shelter in Vienna. Nobody photographed him. Nobody remembered his name. If you'd told anyone on that street that this man would one day control Europe, start the deadliest war in human history, and orchestrate the murder of 6 million people, they would have laughed you out of the room. So, how did that happen? Stick around, because the answer isn't just, he was evil. It's a warning about how power actually works. Adolf Hitler was born in 1889 in a small Austrian town, not Germany. He wanted to be a painter. He wasn't very good. Art school rejected him twice. Then World War I happened, and everything changed. He enlisted in the German army, not even his own country's army, and found something in the war he'd never had before: purpose, structure, brotherhood. He was wounded, gassed, decorated for bravery. Then Germany lost. And Hitler, lying in a hospital bed recovering from a mustard gas attack, decided someone had to be blamed. That single idea, someone must be blamed, became the engine of everything that followed. Post-war Germany was a disaster. Hyperinflation so bad people burned cash for heat because it was cheaper than firewood. Unemployment, humiliation from the Treaty of Versailles, a population desperate for someone to explain why their world had collapsed. Hitler joined a tiny fringe political group, fewer than 50 members, and discovered he had a terrifying gift. He could speak to a crowd and make them feel something, not think, feel. He didn't offer complicated policy. He offered a story. Germany was betrayed. Germany was great once. Germany could be great again. And he named enemies to blame for the fall. That formula, nostalgia, grievance, a scapegoat, and a promise of restored glory, is one of the oldest tricks in political history. It's shown up again and again, in different countries, different decades. Hitler didn't invent it. He just executed it ruthlessly. In 1923, Hitler tried to seize power by force in the beer hall putsch. It failed instantly. He was arrested and thrown in prison. This should have ended his career. Instead, prison became his launchpad. While locked up, he wrote Mein Kampf, part memoir, part manifesto, laying out his ideology in writing for the first time. He served less than a year. He walked out with a new strategy. Forget the coup. Win legally. Use elections, propaganda, and public spectacle instead of a putsch. Over the next decade, as the Great Depression crushed Germany's economy again, his party's vote share exploded, from a fringe joke to the largest party in parliament. In 1933, he was legally appointed chancellor, not through force, through ballots, backroom deals, and fear. Within weeks, a fire in the Reichstag building gave him the excuse to suspend civil liberties temporarily. That temporary suspension never ended. By 1934, Hitler had eliminated rivals inside his own party, merged the roles of president and chancellor, and made every soldier swear a personal oath, not to Germany, but to him. Propaganda became a state industry. Youth were organized into indoctrination programs. Books were burned. Newspapers were controlled. Dissent became dangerous. And the persecution of Jewish people, which had always been part of his ideology, escalated from rhetoric to law, then to violence, then, by the early 1940s, to industrialized genocide across occupied Europe. Germany invaded Poland in 1939. World War II had begun. For a while, it looked unstoppable. France fell in 6 weeks. Much of Europe came under Nazi control. Then came the mistakes that define every collapsing empire: overreach and arrogance. Hitler invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, opening a second front his generals warned him against. The brutal Russian winter and Soviet resistance ground the German army down. Then, the United States entered the war after Pearl Harbor. Fighting a two-front war against the world's largest industrial powers is not a strategy. It's a slow-motion collapse. By 1944, Allied forces were landing in Normandy. By early 1945, Soviet troops were closing in on Berlin from the east. On April 30th, 1945, with the city collapsing around him and Soviet soldiers blocks from his bunker, Adolf Hitler took his own life. 12 years. That's how long the regime that promised to last 1,000 years actually lasted. Here's the uncomfortable part. Hitler wasn't a supernatural monster who appeared out of nowhere. He was a product of economic collapse, national humiliation, and a population desperate enough to trade truth for comfortable lie.